Welcome to Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. Our team's goal is to present science-based information about gardening and all things nature in New York's Hudson Valley. Our hosts are Master Gardener volunteers for the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Columbia and Greene counties, midpoint along the Hudson River Valley. So if you're interested in gardening or nature or just nuggets of information about what's happening outside your door, listen in and enjoy the conversation. Whatever the season, we'll always have something to talk about.
Hi, I'm Tim Kennelty.
And I'm Jean Thomas. We're thrilled today to have the crew from Julia's Local, a garden-to-table restaurant featuring ultra-fresh veggies, locally sourced trout, and phenomenal food with a Scandinavian twist.
So Julia Joern, thank you for writing, is the eponymous front of house. Thank you, Jean, for that eponymous. And Henning
You're welcome.
Nordanger, correct?
Correct.
AKA Norwegian Carpenter, is the chef. The approximately 1 acre intensely farmed garden is operated by Tractor Dan, and we're going to hear more about why he's called Tractor Dan soon. How about, if no particular order, you each tell us about your background and kind of tell us how you got here.
Well, I'll start. I guess I'm the reason we have Julia's Local.
Yeah.
I moved to Round Top in the late 90s by chance and by accident, and was working in the city like everybody else, going back and forth, and using Round Top as my sort of place to recover from urban life. And then I finally did retire from New York City about 7 years ago, and by great fortune reconnected with Henning, who had been a friend of mine for going on, 20 years, I guess. We had originally met when he was doing some carpentry work on my house. And then over time, I got to know him and realized we worked really well together. We had a very similar sort of work ethic and aesthetic. I went to architecture school, and as a Scandinavian, we like things that are pretty warm but minimal. And I always fantasized that we could work on some sort of building project together. And so when this little building in my little town became available for sale, I bought it stupidly. And Henning and I embarked on a 4-year renovation project. It had really good bones, but needed to be modernized, I think, and kind of brought up to sort of what we wanted to make and welcome people into our home. We really wanted to make it feel like a domestic.
It does feel like home. It really does.
So we did everything from, oh my goodness, like do the walls and build a bar and sand the floors and build tables and expand and create a really great working kitchen, knowing that would be in harmony with this garden that we started at the same time. Thanks to really our neighbor across the street from us on Blackhead Mountain Road had a very flat and sunny 20-acre piece of property. I knew his grandpa. His name is J.D. Eisman. And after his grandpa passed, J.D. moved into the house as a young adult and was very generously able to allow us to grow the majority of the food on his property.
So it was always, if you were going to have the restaurant, you had to have the garden. Yes?
It's sort of the whole point of the restaurant. And I can't speak for Henning, but I love his food, wanted it in my town. I went many times to his other restaurant called Henning's Local in the Western Catskills. Unfortunately closed earlier this year when someone purchased the building. Another sort of great accident that happened was Daniel showed up when we were renovating. He had just moved, he'll tell you the rest of the story, but he had just moved to Round Top, and he just told us he had been farming in Columbia County, and that was sort of the aha moment to have a real garden with someone who knew exactly what they were doing to get us started.
And things happen like that, right? He just showed up.
He
right?
just showed up. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah. Tell us about showing up and your background, Daniel. Now over to you.
I came into farming from food service, actually. I used to work in restaurants. It was a little too stressful for me, really, and ended up taking a farming apprenticeship in Vermont for a summer. Came back, got a job. I worked in Columbia County for 3 different farms, eventually managing like larger organic farms.
It was all vegetable and fruit?
All vegetables, yeah. I mean, I helped move animals around and fencing, but I don't really love animal farming as much. And then had some kids and we wanted to buy a house and Greene County, moved over there.
And did Julia have to charm you to convince you to come on board?
No, I had been commuting back, so I was like,
Oh.
oh, this isn't going to work. I have to find something else. And I think they were someone was using the kitchen while they were renovating to sell bread. And we were having company over, and I was like, oh, I'll check out this new place and buy some bread for our company that's coming over. Place was all torn apart, and we just got to talking, and I was like, yeah, I've been working on these farms for a long time, and I'm getting sick of commuting, and I kind of want to find something else. And it just so happened, and you're like, oh, that's crazy, because that's exactly what we're looking for, is someone to start a little farm.
It was our vision, but we had no idea how to execute it. We knew we could use the property from our neighbor, Henning, as a chef for his whole adult life. So 4 decades in, I would say, in watching him work in the garden and work on the farm, it really is the ultimate that you can, I think, achieve as a chef, is to have everything grown that you're serving and be able to harvest it the same day. But it's true, when Daniel showed up, I forgot about that. We were sharing the space while we were renovating with a neighbor named Marta, who runs a small business called Potter's Table. And she was just getting started and she needed some workspace. She was working out of her home kitchen. Now she has grown and evolved into, she's in a large commercial kitchen, I think, in Catskill. But that was something that we were able to offer her. And it also was kind of motivating to have someone in the space with us. But we would do little pop-up events during renovation to get to know people and get them to see the space and convince them that one day we'd actually be open. For a lot of people in the community, they knew that building as the old Hartman's Coffee House, which had been around for almost 60 years. So we wanted to be able to, in a positive way, show that we were doing something else. There was some disappointment that we weren't going to carry on Hartman's Coffee House. We know the original Hartman family. We knew the family after that. And we knew, obviously, the last owner who actually came to the restaurant the other day to take a cooking class, Diane. So she was happy it was us, because I live right around the corner. And I used to walk to Hartman's Coffee House and go there not even once a day, but sometimes twice a day for my coffee. And then I'd go back for lunch.
Julia's local because you truly are local, is that?
Well, it was really inspired from what Henning did at Henning's Local. So the local is really about, people think, obviously, it's about we grow our own food. It can't be more hyper local than that. But it's really inspired by Henning's Local, which was really about the people who go there to eat and the people who work there. So it's really about the people. Our vegetables are local, the trout is local, the chicken is local, but our wine's not local. I have ambitions to have much more on the wine list from New York State, but
We can hook you up.
I know, that's what I figure. That's what I'm doing here. But there's just things that come from all over that Henning wants to put on the menu, and traditions are sometimes not local. They're Norwegian and Scandinavian and French. Things like that.
But we love that.
Mm-hmm.
So Henning, tell us more.
When I opened Henning's Local in 2012, I took over a space that was similar to Hartman's here in Round Top. It was in Eldred, New York. It was in a space that had history, and it was seasonal and tourist-oriented and things like that. I wanted the restaurant to be for the locals. I wanted it to be year-round for the locals, by the locals, and of course the local food is a great bonus. I've been a chef for almost 40 years.
But you're like a magician, so tell us about you really are. Tell us your chef history.
I just realized that, but in my chef history, well...
Wait, which part? The magician part, or you?
You don't even are.
No, I did not realize that. I was an apprentice when I was 17 years old in Norway. I'm from Norway, born and raised. Large hotels, large restaurants, big involvement. It was a 4-year education part and all of that. So once I was due to the place that I trained in when I was young, I was selected to, it was more because of the place, maybe not so much my skills, but at the time, but I got selected for the mandatory military service. I was in the Navy. We have a large Navy in Norway, where I got to be on a royal yacht for about a year. What is it called?
Draft.
Yeah. So everyone does that after the education is done. So once I was done with that, I worked in several large hotels. I moved to New York, came for a backpacking trip in 1997. Wow, a long time ago. And I worked several places, and I traveled the country and saw a lot of things. Bought a beat-up car and did a road trip thing. And so I lived in New York City for about 10 years and bought a house in Sullivan County in 2006. And then I worked as a carpenter for a while, just because there was no cooking jobs that I was interested in at the time. And I kind of needed a break anyway. This is around the time when I met Julia, and we did some projects together and enjoyed that. So
Wait, I got a question.
yeah, sure. Okay.
Are Norwegians born knowing how to do carpentry? I mean, this is a pretty
Wow.
Well, they're
pretty
a
intense.
stereotype. Wow.
Well, no, that's why. That's his backup trade. So I'm just curious.
My brother is a carpenter. My dad is pretty good at it.
So you had no choice.
I have no choice.
Okay.
It gets a little complicated because you're also born with skis and you shoot on your feet.
That was the other night.
They get a little clumsy up
Yep.
in the rafters
Yeah.
and stuff.
But you get a cool hat.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But on the Royal Yacht, you obviously cooked, right? I mean, you obviously have deep cooking history and knowledge, and
Yeah.
I mean, because everything we eat is just the absolute best, and
Mm.
the way you've described how you prepared it is just, I mean, you're a magician. What else can I say?
Well, it's a lot of experience accumulated in over the years. And when I think about it, like with my basic training as is in French, where there's a lot of more nuance, I really do like bold flavors and like in your face, straight up tomato soup is, there's only tomatoes in that soup.
Yeah, and the absolutely best tomato soup you've ever eaten, too.
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, I like bold flavors, but the nuances in French cuisine was like my basic training. So over the years of experience, and I will get to the part where I am growing the food.
Yes.
Of course, with the great help of this guy, and having that extension to like at this point in my evolvement of cooking is like buying seeds and sourcing seeds and stuff in February when everything is quite dark and we're still working and all of that, but like getting seeds, going through the motions of I'm just scratching the surface in this experience, but Daniel has all the knowledge and the know-how, so he keeps my nose in the right direction.
And how does that work? I mean, do you talk about what you'd like to plant, or do you talk about what you'd like to cook, or are the two basically the same thing?
Same thing, really. So it becomes like an extension of my like I'm back on the stove now. I've taken a break from that for a few years, and I'm back at the stove enjoying that portion of the cooking, like the creative part, and that will always be there and it will always evolve. But I'm actually physically cooking every day in my kitchen, and I love that. And I have full access to all the wonderful produce that comes out. And it's actually, my job is quite easy when it comes to the quality of the products that I get to work with without losing my shirt and like going to farmers markets and things like this. We grow it ourselves. We pick it the tomato soup. Let's use that as an example. It's like we leave it hanging on the vine as long as possible, so the shelf life is like 20 minutes. So we have to serve it that day. We have to serve it the next day, and then we make it. It's like the freshest, ripest, at the peak of flavor.
So at 4:00 you're picking tomatoes, and at 5:00 you're serving tomatoes.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like that. So, and herbs are always fresh, and that extension of my professional experience with food is a revelation for me.
And do you consider yourself a gardener too? I mean, even though maybe you're not, you don't.
I agree. I would like to say so. This guy, I differ. I don't know.
We've been putting in more work, I think. Yeah.
I really had it reading.
Well, I mean, I don't.
Not the crawling
And you don't have to be kind of digging in the garden to be a gardener. I don't think it's a broad definition, because you're talking about picking out seeds and things like that.
Yeah. for me personally, it's like an experience where it's only natural, and that's like Mother Nature has all the things. Like as a chef, I don't have to tinker with the food at all. Like I'm not a magician.
You are though. I'm gonna
take it, and okay. I'm gonna cherish that forever. But that's when nature gives me. It's like my job.
Right.
My job is easy.
Right.
It makes me look good. Thanks to this guy. Thanks to Mother Earth. Thanks to the project that we have put together with Julia.
But you are being too humble, because I mean, even how you described the tomato salad you served recently, there was a lot of manipulation on your part. I don't mean that in a negative way at all, in getting the best flavor and the kind of the absolute best product to serve to some.
Yeah, we selected over the last couple of years, we selected the tomatoes that we like the best.
Right.
Of course, and like from that seed selection part of it, and we have miles to go still, like from the seed selection to selecting we like this one best, this one produced better, our soil is so-and-so, and all of those things. And then we get to the part where we will allow the tomato to get to the most perfect, hopefully, to the most perfect point, and we cut it and we use it that day. I will slice it in a certain way, but we make sure it's nice and chunky pieces. Very little salt. We make from all the butts and ends. We make it like a tomato essence.
Yes.
Where the water that comes out on your cutting board when you're cutting it, we collect that. Not from the cutting board. It's a process. We get the tomato essence out of it. We put that back on the tomato, and then I put the whole thing in the vacuum chamber.
This doesn't sound easy to me in any way.
But
Okay.
he has to do it. He's a
Yeah.
poet. He's a poet. He's not a magician. Okay, now left here. Full disclosure. Tim and I have obviously both dined at Julia's Local,
Right.
from Tim drooling all over the microphone, but not together. I think we both ate at the chef's table. Now, for those of you who don't watch cooking shows on TV, that means we get to sit on the edge of the kitchen and ask a million questions.
I think they just wanted you out of the dining room, Julia.
That could be. But it makes the food taste.
Keep it away from the general public.
Keep it, yeah. That's been done before. As this whole operation is obviously a labor of love, Henning, would you hate it if you had to cook in a less social environment, back in a normal high pressure kitchen?
Like in a basement somewhere.
In a basement or in a commercial kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, I like that aspect of it because I'm comfortable enough. My insecurities are pretty much gone at this point. When I was a young chef, I was angry and loud, and
Well, that's part of the job description, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
those it's like being confident and comfortable, and it's easy. And like I said, all the products and I don't have to do much. I try not to get in the way of the good food.
But again, being way too modest, because you were multitasking, you were answering questions and talking to us, and also just making this incredible food at the same time. So we highly recommend, especially if you're like Jean and I, you want to be kept out of the dining room, right?
That's right.
Well, Julia, maybe you want to tell us about the fact that you were a radio host. So at one point in time, yes?
I was during
Shows.
COVID, actually. Well, my background was in architecture, and then I worked in book publishing.
So Renaissance woman, in other words.
No, just accidental, things. Not accidental. I was very obsessed as a young student to work in book publishing. This would have been in the late 80s, early 90s. I was behind the scenes working as a translator between the artist, the architect, the creative person, and then on the other side, the general public. I did, for lack of a better word, PR, publicity and promotion.
Yeah, and I mean, that explains kind of your front of the house, right? Because you're the hostess with the mostest.
Well,
right?
thanks. I get in a lot of trouble usually by the end of the night after. Sometimes I start drinking at the bar.
There you go. I think I would advise it, yeah.
Saturday night, it usually dissolves and evolves into something that I don't really, not always so proud of, but it's always fun. Working with creative people was really what I was doing for 25 years. So I was always in awe of people who could make things and do things and create things from what I saw as kind of nothing. and then also put it out there. I could never do that. This idea of like making something, putting your heart and soul into it, whether it's a painting or it's a building or it's a photograph, and being judged by it. So I wouldn't consider myself a protector of artists and creative people, but I was definitely very empathetic to what it was that they were doing and how much courage it took to put something out in the world for everyone to look at and judge. But I do like talking to people. I like hearing people's stories. So that's how the little radio show through Wave Farm, who I'd been, actually, it was JD, my neighbor, who had a show on Wave Farm, WGXC. And he had a musical show. He had some trippy sort of avant-garde contemporary music show. And he asked me to support the radio station just as a member, which I did. And since I was living now full-time in Round Top, it was something that I could really dig into and listen to. And I really admired what they were doing as a nonprofit creative hub. They were interviewing me about what was kind of happening with our project, I think during COVID. And then they interviewed me for the actual radio station and then asked me to do a little radio show. So it was so fun to do because it gave me an excuse to go out and meet people on their terms. And some of it was during COVID. I think it was during our renovation. It was called Hudson Valley Word of Mouth. And it was very basic. It was trying to show a spotlight on certain places that the general public could go to. So I didn't interview artists because you can't necessarily go into an artist studio. So I wanted to look at small businesses, small farmers, just everything from like...
You could have a podcast.
It was fun. I admire you because it was so much work. These little tiny, I think I had to do a 5 to 7 minute segment and it took me all week. It just did. And just between like setting it up and going to meet the person and doing the interview, and I had to teach myself editing skills, and it was a lot of work, and I really had to kind of get back to work on what we were doing. But it was a great joy to do. And it had really started because I had done an Instagram account that I've been running for like 5 years called Round Top Recommends. And it was just my little way of tapping into what was happening culturally in the community. I didn't do a lot about restaurants and things like that. It was like not like, influencers today, like here I am eating at this restaurant. It was more about the richness and the diversity of what was happening primarily in sort of Greene County, Columbia County, Ulster County. And I really did it for myself. I did it as a way to kind of encourage myself to go out and see things and do things and just participate. I didn't really know anybody.
And it really makes sense in terms of kind of your following with the restaurant, right? I mean,
it's the same. Everything is just the same concept in a different sort of stream.
So your role when we hear Henning and Dan talk about the things that they're growing, I mean, how involved are you with that? Are you
zero?
And you're not. You don't veto things and say, we don't want this tomato, no?
Oh, no. I am in awe of what it is that they're doing. And from where we... I have weeded maybe 4 or 5 hours total in 4 years. I am in awe of what they've been able to accomplish.
And you have to kind of understand the dish that comes from that produce to be able to talk to customers,
I would say
right?
I am now. Like, I'll give you an example. We had this surprise star on the menu this summer, which was this eggplant parmesan.
Oh, yeah. Somebody just had that.
It was good. And it was something where it's like, oh my God, we have too much eggplant. Last year, we used the eggplant to make like baba ganoush and these spreads. And then it just became, there was too much. And we didn't know necessarily what to do with it. And Henning came up with his own take on eggplant parmesan. And I know it sounds so silly. It's like eggplant parmesan, who cares? But it was the star of the late summer because it was so fresh. It was so unique. I saw someone in Hannaford who stopped me and said, now I can't ever eat eggplant parmesan.
And it's not your grandmother's eggplant parmesan, right?
Yeah.
Not at all.
It's really like, how can, to explain this dish?
Explained it. Oh, wow.
I mean, explain the eggplant.
Oh,
describe the dish.
It's breaded eggplant. We had a abundance of it, and it was at the peak of its flavor, and we needed to preserve that. I needed a vegetarian dish on the menu, triple breaded, like the whole eggplant. We grow those.
It's an Asian eggplant, like the longs.
A nice long one.
You do usually have a vegetarian dish on the menu anyway, right?
Yeah. So that was it was kind of like a happy chance, and it was incredibly popular. So it's deep fried, and I served it with, guess what? The tomato
Yes.
sauce in this case.
So did somebody make a mistake that they thought at the beginning of the season we're going to plant a lot of eggplant, and it was a happy coincidence, or?
We are still, I would say, trying to figure out volumes that we will always have flushes of
Sure.
abundance, like some things will.
Eggplant really grows in waves where they get a whole lot of flowers at once, and then you're going to get a lot of fruit all at once.
Hi, it's Tim.
And it's Jean.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our interview with the Julia's local team.
That concludes another episode of Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. We would like to thank Xander Powers and Devin Connolly from the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Columbia and Greene Counties for production support. And a special thanks to our listeners for joining us on this episode of Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. You can find links to any of the topics mentioned in this episode at our website at ccecolumbiagreen.org. Comments and suggestions for future topics may be directed to us at columbiagreenmgv@cornell.edu or on the CCE Master Gardener Volunteers of Columbia and Greene Facebook page. For more information about CCE of Columbia and Greene, visit our website or visit in person during business hours at our campuses in Hudson or Acra. Cornell Cooperative Extension provides equal programming and educational opportunities.